Welcome back to Just Chattin', and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So for all you Audie fans, he is around here somewhere. I'm pretty sure he's asleep because everything's been very quiet. Never a good sign, but we have to make do with what we've got. He has not been appearing in videos lately. He went through a period where he was just showing up every time the camera was rolling, and now he's sleeping. So maybe he'll show up, maybe he won't, but we're going to start without him nevertheless. All right, we're going to take a quick break for the intro. We'll be right back. So, the topic of this evening's video has come from the comments sections of previous videos. Now, there has been a sort of recurring comment that I'm seeing more and more lately. I think it started around, a year ago. Not the first time, but in earnest about a year ago. And recently, this particular comment has surfaced more and more often. And that is people just writing in saying, I think Harry is a psychopath. I think Harry is a sociopath. I think he belongs in an institution. Words to that effect. And it was actually a comment a couple of weeks ago from one of our viewers who said, I think he's a sociopath. And for some reason, even though I had come across that comment many times before, and I have no doubt anyone else who does videos on this topic has seen either this comment or comments very similar, but for some reason, it just hit me just the right way. And I said to myself, you know what? We've talked about this a lot. Is there a screw loose? Let's see. So, in order to do this video, what I did was I went to the American Psychiatric Association, got their list of criteria for antisocial personality disorder, which is the official term of sociopathy. And I thought, let's take a look. We see all kinds of, way too much information, frankly, from Harry. So I would say if we as outsiders could make a judgment like this about anyone, it's certainly going to be someone who goes as far out of their way as he does to lay every ridiculous detail of his life in front of our faces, right down to how he lost his virginity and how his Todger got frostbitten. Yeah, if it's there, we're going to be able to pick it up. So let's get right into it. The list of symptoms of antisocial personality disorder consists of 7 criteria. And in order for someone to have a diagnosis as suffering from antisocial personality disorder, they need to display at least 3. Can be more, but you need at least 3, and they have to be consistently displayed from adolescence onward. The exact age that the American Psychiatric Association cites is 15. So by the time you're 15, you have to be displaying these personality characteristics. So let's get into it. I'm sorry. Before we get into it, I do need to say, I have taken these personality characteristics out of order. In the American Psychiatric Association's list, they were in a certain order, but there seemed to be no real reason for that. In other words, they produced a random list, and I have just re-randomized it for my own convenience. Okay, now we'll get into it. Number 1, lack of remorse. So yeah, we just got through dealing with Harry telling the world that his conscience is clean, no regrets, hasn't done anything he needs to be sorry for. And in fact, for years we've been listening to him say other people owe him an apology. I have to say, this is a no-brainer. This is a person who actually has no sense of culpability for anything. Whatever happened in his life, not his fault, out of his control. He has not done anything wrong. He did drugs when he was an adolescent. Well, that wasn't his fault. His mummy died. He was clearly upset. And the list goes on. So I thought we would start with that one because it is, in fact, the biggie. And it's one that is so blatant, it almost needs no explanation at all. When did Harry ever accept responsibility for anything? It's not happening. Not happening. Somebody else is always to blame. And given the fact that he has just said, my conscience is clear, well, we have all the proof we need. Let's move on to number 2. And this is deceitfulness. People who suffer from antisocial personality disorder are very often deceitful. And remember, we need 3 out of the 7, meaning that people with antisocial personality disorder will display some, possibly even all, of these personality traits, but not necessarily. In other words, if there is a personality trait that doesn't fit, fine. It's not necessarily it's not a one-size-fits-all. Let's put it that way. So let's get back to deceitfulness. I have to say that when it comes to deceitfulness, I am astounded by some of the things that he has said. In particular, in an interview when he told an absolutely astonished reporter that he had never called the royal family racist. My wife and I never said that. Well, then who the heck did we watch on the Oprah interview? It may be true that neither one of them used exactly those words in exactly that order. No one said, the royal family is racist, but they certainly did accuse the royal family of speculating in an inappropriate way about the color of their putative child. They said that the entire institution was permeated with racism, that it was systemic in the institution. And I would have to say, yeah, they did. He had no problem denying that. And then when we move over to his later disclosures in Spare, we have everything from that absurd little story about taking the human remains that allegedly came from Nutmeg's alleged miscarriage that were, again, allegedly given to them by the hospital and allegedly dug a hole at the base of a tree and buried them there. You know, that is such a crackpot story. I don't even know how anybody would expect it to be believed. Hospitals do not hand out little packages of what they consider to be biological waste. If they are dealing with people who are very religious and wish to have what most of us would call biological waste, they might call human remains. If they want to have it buried, it is done the same way any human body that is pronounced dead in the hospital is done. It's transferred to a funeral home, and the funeral home disposes of it responsibly. There are laws all over this country prohibiting unauthorized and inappropriate disposal of human remains. So yeah, did that happen? No. Was it a lie? Yeah. And so we've just come up with 2 biggies that everyone is aware of. We are not even talking about small lies that he might have, fudged the truth talking to a friend. We're talking about falsehoods that he presented to the entire world, that virtually the entire world could easily detect as such. In other words, we all know that he and his wife did say the royal family was racist. We know those allegations were out there. We know the press did not call the royal family racist. We know Nutmeg and the sock puppet did it. Like, wow. So there's no getting around the fact that these are untruths or that he said them. So I would have to say, yeah, we got number 2 on the list. Now let me just grab the next one. Impulsivity. This is lack of direction, lack of planning, just taking life on a whim, so to speak. And I think anybody who has paid any attention to the trajectory of Harry's life understands this is not a man with a plan. Not at all. He simply drifts from one thing to another. He went into the army. The family said, go forth into the army, and he did it. And when he was in the army, as is the case with anyone who is in the army, senior officers tell you what to do. Impulsivity is not big in any branch of the military service of any country. Senior officers exist to keep impulsivity at a bare minimum. So we do know that when he was in the army, his behavior was not particularly impulsive, but when he was out of the army, directionless, just no set goals, nothing in particular that he was aiming for. Now, lately, of course, he refers to his time in the royal family as a life of service and charity, but no, that's not really what was going on. He was not making the kind of royal appearances someone like Princess Anne makes. Of course, who does? He was simply going where he was told to go. As far as his own life was concerned, we saw it in the headlines. Nightclubs and whacking at the paparazzi, but we'll get into that in a moment. So next we have consistent irresponsibility. And they cite specifically regarding work and financial obligations. And we have absolutely seen this. Other than Harry's time in the army, and mind you, this guy is in his 40s. He has not had a job. Yes, he is on the payroll of Better Up, but that's not a job. He doesn't have to go into an office. It's probably his title that got recruited into that company and not his actual person. So, does he show up at the office in the morning? No. There is no sense of this is who he is and what he does. He doesn't have a job other than a stint in the army. He has never had a job as we would recognize it. Even as a working royal, it was simply occasional appearances and nowhere near as many appearances as the late Queen, who was quite elderly, as Charles, as certainly none when compared with Anne. As for his financial irresponsibility, we all heard that on the Oprah interview. This was a man married, allegedly the father of a child and one on the way. He was complaining that his family had cut him off financially. They were not giving him money. Well, yeah, I mean, isn't that normal? But, not for him. And saying that in order to meet the family's needs, they were signing deals with Netflix and Spotify and the publishing deals. So basically, the fact that his family allegedly cut him off financially, which, by the way, they did not do, but that's for another video. Other than that, this is what he was looking at, saying, this is why I wrote the book, spilled all the family secrets, made the Netflix docudrama, spilled all the family secrets, called everybody racist, etc., etc., because of a complete lack of responsibility. He simply assumes that people are going to pay him for being a prince. And he actually expects, and has stated as much, that he expects his family to support him. I would have to say that's about as irresponsible as it gets. So that's 4 of them we've got. Next up, failure to conform to the laws and to social expectations. Drugs. That's all we need to say. Harry's long-term consistent drug use, which is illegal. It was illegal when he was doing it in the UK. It is illegal now that he's doing it in the US. No question about it. He has been exceptionally public about this, even doing a television special about the wonders of hallucinogenic drugs. Yeah. I would say that Harry takes it beyond failure to comply with the laws. He is actively and aggressively flouting those laws. When you make a television special about hallucinogenic drugs, which are not legal, you're not just disobeying the law, you're rubbing everybody's nose in the fact that you are disobeying the law. There we go. And frankly, given the fact that his drug history is so aggressive, so in your face, so public, there's no need to go any further than that. Okay, let's check our list again. Okay, so now we are down to the last 2. And this one is, this is number 6 on the list, irritability and aggression. Well, I believe they said aggressiveness. And I should keep that straight, because the psychiatric community chooses its terms carefully, so no need for me to rewrite. Is Harry irritable and aggressive? Yes, and we have seen this. Recently, by recently I mean within the last couple of years, 2 separate stories have come out about Harry being physically aggressive with family members. We've had a story recently that he had been aggressive with his Uncle Andrew, and we had from Harry's own mouth or pen or ghostwriter in Spare that he and William had a fist fight. So we know it's there. Do we see a lot of this? No, we don't. And I have to throw that out because this is one where I think, yeah, it fits kind of sort of, but it's a little bit of a stretch in my opinion. There is, however, a reason for this. Harry is right now surrounded by bodyguards, large people with firearms who are sufficient to stand between him and anyone who might irritate him or trigger his aggression. So yeah, it's going to be very hard for him to display irritability or aggressiveness under these circumstances. Also, going back even further, when Harry was growing up within the royal family, as he himself said, he was growing up in a fishbowl. It was very hard to hide these things. Did he have moments of aggression? Yes, he did. Harry was filmed and photographed assaulting the media, paparazzi reporters. Yes, we've seen it. We know it happened. But I don't see this as a clear and consistent pattern of behavior. If he didn't have bodyguards surrounding him all the time, if he didn't have all of the protection that his wealth and his position in the royal family has given him, would we see more of this? I'm sure we would. I am also equally certain that the dreaded and despised British media cleaned a lot of this up, because we certainly do see a lot more of Harry's negative side now that he is no longer being protected by the British media than we ever saw before. So let's take a look at this final one, and this is a reckless disregard for one's own safety or the safety of others. And again, I have to say, this one is not a particularly good fit. Yes, we have the story of Harry in a plane attempting to dive bomb his father's car. Problem is, I'm not even sure that incident ever took place. I think it's just as likely that that was complete fabrication as anything else. So it is with the greatest of reluctance that I would throw that out. But do I feel there has been a consistent pattern? Well, not in the classic sense, but consistent drug use for, really, what are we looking at now? Like 25 years? Because this goes back into his early adolescence. Consistent drug use for 25 years, I would say that is reckless disregard for oneself. Absolutely. But is that the kind of reckless disregard the American Psychiatric Association is referring to? I don't think so, because they usually put things like alcohol and substance abuse in a separate category. So my final analysis on this is we had 7. We have 5 solid hits. We only need 3 in order to say, yes, this is antisocial personality disorder. And these 3 need to have been present from his adolescence onward. And I do believe that when we look at the 5 we see, most, if not all of them, have been present from his adolescence onward. So, my final take on this, those of you who said he's a sociopath, yeah, I think you made your case. It's just that simple. If you throw the allegation out there and it stands up to scrutiny and it holds water, yeah. I gotta say, we are probably looking at someone who is deep in the throes of antisocial personality disorder. So, obviously, this would have been a long-standing situation. I think one of the problems for Harry, and this is the only time I'm going to give you Harry as a victim, so mark the time and date on this one. I would say that his position in the royal family got him too much leeway, too much look the other way, too much grace. I think if Harry had been born into a middle-class family somewhere in Yorkshire, Mummy and Daddy would have dragged him off to therapy very, very quickly. And maybe that's why things have blossomed. Now, keep in mind, we looked at 7 symptoms, but he has more. So I would say this is only part of who he is. Remember, until he was in his early 20s, he believed his mother was in hiding. She wasn't really dead. I would say that's a problem. It's certainly a delusion. The idea of a small child believing this is one thing, But going into adulthood with this belief, no, that's a problem. We know this from his own words in Spare. Also, while we're on the subject of mummy, his mother apparently appeared to him in Africa as a leopard. That is, gosh, I don't even want to say delusional because it's so far beyond normal delusional. That's just crazy. I mean, come on. He has said in interviews since leaving the royal family that he believes his mother is guiding his path, helping him with his decisions, giving him her approval. The woman has been dead for more than 25 years. She is not guiding anyone. She is not coaxing anyone along any path. She is not in the pantheon of saints looking down on him. No, this is not reality. Just not. And those are just the ones that are so blatant, we can't possibly ignore them. So are there issues here? Absolutely. Is antisocial personality disorder one of them? At least. And I would have to say more than likely. Obviously, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not his psychiatrist. Thank heavens for that. But this is what the information that is available to all of us is telling us. And I have to say, and I've said this often enough, if we just bring our own common sense to bear, we will figure it out. And you folks have been figuring this out on your own for a very long time, and I know this because I see it in the comments section. So yeah, I gotta say, I'm giving you this one. I absolutely believe that you folks are on the right track. So that is what I have for you today. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. Thank you for being with us. Hope to see you again next time. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.